Ever feel like you're kind of like your own worst enemy?
Mm.
You know, like you're standing in your own way,
Yeah.
tripping yourself up right before the finish line.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Ego.
It's a tough one.
That's what we're diving into today.
Mhm.
We're going deep with Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy to like really figure out how this sneaky saboteur works, you know?
Oh, it's a constant battle, isn't it?
Oh, for sure.
And it's not just about, like, arrogance.
Right.
Like, we often think of ego as this big, loud personality trait.
Yeah, for sure.
But as Holiday lays it out in the book, it's so much more, well, insidious.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of pops up everywhere.
Everywhere.
In all aspects of our lives, especially when we're striving for success or dealing with setbacks.
Okay, so let's get tactical, right? Like, what's the first trap that Holiday warns us about? What do we have to look out for?
He starts with aspiration, that stage where we're all gung-ho, full of dreams, you know.
Yeah.
And he actually uses his own story as kind of a cautionary tale.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So you see, Holiday achieved success pretty young, dropping out of college at 19 to jump into the fast lane.
Wow, 19. That's young.
Yeah, and it would have been so easy to just craft this glamorous narrative,
Right,
you know,
right.
a hero's journey.
Oh, totally, like a highlight reel.
Exactly. With all the struggles conveniently left out.
Yeah, like airbrushing your resume for a LinkedIn post, except it's, you know, your life story we're talking about.
Exactly. And that's where ego can really sabotage us before we even begin. Holiday talks about initially omitting his failures, like this book signing where only one person showed up.
Oh, man.
Can you imagine?
Brutal.
But by acknowledging those experiences, he brings this crucial element of honesty back into the picture.
Right.
It actually reminds me of something a mentor once told me. He said, "You learn more from your failures than your successes,
That's a good one.
but only if you're willing to own them."
That's so true. It's like that saying, experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted.
Yes.
But it's how we process those experiences, failures included, that really defines our journey, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So how does this owning your story tie into keeping ego in check, especially in a world obsessed with self-promotion?
Well, Holiday argues that one of the most powerful antidotes to ego is silence.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and now this might sound kind of counterintuitive, especially in today's noisy world of social media. where
Yeah.
everyone and their dog is vying for attention.
It's very noisy out there.
But think about it. This constant pressure to talk, to be heard, often stems from insecurity, a need for kind of external validation rather than genuine self-confidence.
So it's like we're all trying to shout over each other, just hoping that someone will notice us.
Precisely.
Right.
And that's where the danger lies. Holiday quotes Kierkegaard, who warned that premature expression weakens action.
I like that.
It's like when you overhype something, that new project, a big idea, you kind of dissipate the energy needed to actually bring it to fruition.
Oh, I've totally been there.
Haven't we all?
It's like telling everyone about your marathon training before you've even like laced up your shoes.
Right.
You get the initial high fives,
Right.
but then the pressure to perform becomes this like heavy weight on your shoulders.
That's it. And that's where the beauty of silence comes in. Not just in the literal sense,
Right.
but in the sense of choosing your words carefully, of focusing on action over empty boasts.
Less talk, more rock.
I love that.
I like it.
Yeah.
But how do we actually shift from this like need for external validation to a place of quiet confidence and continuous growth?
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
Holiday suggests embracing a student mindset.
Okay.
It's about approaching life with humility,
Okay.
recognizing that we always have something to learn, regardless of our achievements.
Right.
He uses this brilliant analogy from Frank Shamrock, a mixed martial arts champion.
Oh.
Shamrock talks about the importance of having a plus, minus, and equal in your life. You need someone who's better than you, someone you can, learn from, someone who's not as far along, someone you can teach,
Right.
and someone at your level to really push you.
Mm-hmm.
It creates this like constant feedback loop that keeps you grounded and growing.
Okay, I love that.
Right.
It's a constant reminder that we're all works in progress.
We are, always.
But how do we apply this student mindset when we're like constantly bombarded with messages telling us to follow our passion? It seems like everyone and their cat has an inspirational quote about passion these days.
Right. It's become like a mantra.
Totally.
But Holiday challenges this notion.
Okay.
He argues that passion without purpose can actually be a recipe for disaster.
Oh, interesting.
He uses the example of George W. Bush's decision to invade Iraq,
Okay.
suggesting that Bush's passion while undoubtedly strong,
Right.
wasn't really grounded in reason or, a clear understanding of the potential consequences.
Yeah. So it's like driving a car with the gas pedal glued to the floor, but like no steering wheel. You
Yeah.
might be moving, but who knows where you'll end up.
Exactly. Passion can be blinding, and to illustrate this,
Okay.
Holiday points to the hype surrounding the Segway.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
I
It's
do.
supposed to revolutionize personal transportation,
Totally.
but it ultimately fell flat.
It did.
Why? Because it lacked a clear purpose, a real-world need that it fulfilled.
Okay, so if not blindly following our passion, what's the alternative? Like, how do we find that sweet spot between passion and purpose?
Holiday suggests focusing on finding canvases for others to paint on. It's about shifting from a mindset of what's in it for me to how can I contribute? How can I help others succeed?
Okay, I like that a lot.
Yeah?
He uses the term 𝗓𝗄𝗄𝗆, which is really interesting. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Absolutely. And 𝗓𝗄𝗄𝗆 was basically a slave in ancient Rome,
Okay.
whose sole purpose was to clear the path for his master, to literally walk in front and announce his arrival.
Wow.
Now, before you balk at the analogy,
Right.
think about it in a modern context, right?
Okay.
It's about being the person who supports others, who creates opportunities for them to shine, who helps them achieve their goals.
Okay.
It's less about you, more about them.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
It's like that saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. By helping others succeed, you create this positive ripple effect that ultimately benefits everyone involved,
Yes.
including yourself.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's interesting. This approach often requires a high degree of restraint,
Okay.
especially in the face of adversity. And Holiday uses a powerful example to illustrate this. Jackie Robinson,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
the first African-American player in Major League Baseball.
Talk about pressure.
Right. He faced unimaginable racism and hostility, yet he was told he couldn't react.
He couldn't fight back.
He couldn't fight back. How did he do it? He had to master his emotions. Robinson was told that for the sake of the cause, for the future of black athletes, he had to endure the abuse with dignity and composure.
Oh, wow.
He had to silence his ego, resist the very human urge to retaliate,
Right.
even when those reactions were entirely justified.
Wow.
Right.
And it was a strategic move, right? By not giving in to anger or frustration, he challenged the racist tactics used against him.
Exactly. He denied his opponents the satisfaction of seeing him break.
Right. Right.
Now, this doesn't mean we should all become passive doormats in the face of injustice, obviously. But it does raise an important question. When is restraint a more effective strategy than giving in to our ego's need to react? Sometimes the most powerful action is inaction.
Oh, that's good.
Right,
It's a difficult balance to strike, but so crucial.
for sure.
And speaking of difficult things to tame, Holiday doesn't let us off the hook when it comes to the dangers of pride.
No, he does not.
He compares it to a wild beast, harder to subdue than a lion.
Harder to subdue than a lion. And to drive home this point,
Yeah.
he quotes Genghis Khan, the legendary Mongol emperor.
Okay.
Khan, known for his military prowess, warned his sons,
Right.
if you can't swallow your pride, you can't lead.
Wow. Coming from a guy who conquered most of the known world, that carries some weight.
It does. And it speaks to this universal truth, right?
Right.
Pride can make us blind to our own shortcomings, prevent us from learning and growing.
Oh, for sure.
Holiday uses the example of General George McClellan, a Union general during the Civil War.
Okay.
Brilliantly educated, full of potential.
Okay.
McClellan was ultimately crippled by his own ego. He was so convinced of his own genius that he missed countless opportunities to strike,
Really?
allowing the Confederates to outmaneuver him, despite their limited resources.
It's like having all the ingredients for a Michelin star meal, but refusing to follow the recipe because you think you know better.
Exactly. And it's a stark contrast to his opponent, Stonewall Jackson, a Confederate general known for his quiet competence and his willingness to take risks.
Interesting.
It goes to show that ego can be a major stumbling block, even when you have talent and intelligence in spades.
And that brings us to the intersection of ego and failure, right? A recipe for disaster if there ever was one.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like adding gasoline to a fire
Totally.
when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Our ego is often there to kind of like amplify the pain,
Yes.
twist the narrative,
The doubt.
prevent us from learning from our mistakes.
It's that voice in your head telling you it wasn't really your fault.
Exactly. It's like that saying, ego is the anesthesia that dulls the pain of stupidity.
Ooh, I like that one.
And boy, have we seen that play out in, spectacular fashion, both in history and in our own lives.
Oh, absolutely.
𝗲𝗄𝗃 highlights the story of Katharine Graham,
Okay.
who inherited the Washington Post under incredibly difficult circumstances after her husband's suicide.
Yeah, tough situation.
She went from a life of privilege to being thrust into this male-dominated world of publishing, facing a hostile takeover.
Wow.
And a brutal printer strike.
Yeah, can you imagine?
It's hard to even fathom.
Talk about pressure.
Really? Yeah.
Right.
Yet, instead of crumbling under the weight of those challenges, she rose to the occasion.
She did.
How did she manage to keep her ego in check amidst all that chaos?
She made a conscious choice to focus on her responsibilities.
Yeah. Okay.
On what truly mattered, preserving her family's legacy, and protecting the future of the newspaper. It's a powerful reminder that in times of crisis, our ego can either be our downfall or our saving grace. Right? It's about making a conscious choice to focus outward rather than getting trapped in our own heads.
So how do we navigate those inevitable moments of failure,
Right.
those times when we feel lost or stuck?
Yeah.
𝗲𝗄𝗃 talks about the importance of turning dead time into alive time. What does he mean by that?
He uses the incredible story of Malcolm X, who, during his 7 years in prison, transformed himself through the power of education.
Wow. Okay.
He became a voracious reader, immersing himself in history, philosophy, religion.
Wow.
When asked about his alma mater, he simply replied, books.
It's such a powerful example of how we can use challenging times, even periods of confinement or setback,
Right.
as opportunities for growth.
Totally.
It's about reframing those experiences, realizing that even in those moments where we feel stripped bare,
Yeah.
we still have the power to choose how we respond.
We always have a choice.
And that brings us to what might be the most crucial lesson of all.
Oh.
Decoupling our self-worth from outcomes.
Yes.
It's something we all struggle with, especially in a culture obsessed with results and external validation.
Oh, 100% right. We're constantly bombarded with messages telling us to hustle harder, crush our goals, be the best. It's so easy to get caught up in that cycle of striving and never feeling like we're enough.
Right.
Right? And 𝗲𝗃 argues that true satisfaction comes from the work itself, from striving for excellence, regardless of the outcome.
Okay.
He uses the story of the Byzantine general 𝗲𝗲𝗺,
Okay.
who, despite his brilliant military victories and unwavering dedication to his duty, faced repeated betrayals and was ultimately stripped of his power.
That's tough.
And you imagine?
It's heartbreaking when you think about it, to dedicate your life to something only to have it ripped away.
It is. But 𝗲𝗲𝗺 found solace in knowing he had done his duty to the best of his ability. He didn't need that external validation to affirm his worth.
Right.
And that's the key, isn't it?
Right.
Finding that inner compass, that sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on external circumstances or other people's opinions.
Right. It's like that story of Alexander the Great and the philosopher Diogenes.
Oh, yeah. Classic story.
Alexander, at the pinnacle of his power, stood before Diogenes and asked if there was anything he could do for him.
Right.
And Diogenes simply replied, "Yes, stop blocking my sun."
It shows that even the most powerful people in the world can't control how others perceive them.
Right.
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 Wow. The pursuit of external validation is a never-ending treadmill.
So if we can't rely on external validation, where do we find that unshakable sense of self-worth?
𝗲𝗃 suggests finding it in the pursuit of excellence, in the dedication to our craft, and in the act of serving something larger than ourselves. It's about focusing on the process rather than getting fixated on the outcome.
It's about letting go of the need to control the uncontrollable and finding peace in knowing that we did our best, even when our best doesn't result in the outcome we desired.
Yes, exactly.
So where do we go from here? We've covered a lot of ground, but it's clear that managing ego is not a one-and-done deal.
It's a lifelong practice.
Right.
A continuous process of self-reflection and course correction.
It's like brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
You don't just do it once and consider yourself done, right?
Exactly.
It's a daily practice, a commitment to maintaining that inner hygiene, so to speak.
I love that, inner hygiene. That's good.
And it requires vigilance because ego is a master of disguise.
Oh, yeah, it's sneaky.
It can creep up on us in subtle ways,
It does.
whispering doubts, fueling insecurities, tempting us with shortcuts.
Always lurking.
So how do we stay ahead of the game? What's the best defense against these ego-driven traps?
Awareness, for sure.
Okay.
We have to be willing to examine our own patterns,
Okay.
to catch ourselves when we're falling into those familiar traps.
Right. And choose a different path. Right.
Easier said than done.
It's not easy, that's for sure.
But, the good news is we don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
We have Holiday's wisdom, these inspiring stories,
Right.
and even our own experiences, really, to guide us.
That's right. We can learn from each other, too.
And perhaps that's the most empowering takeaway of all.
Okay.
That we have the power to choose humility over ego,
Yes.
to find freedom in letting go, and to achieve true success by defining it on our own terms.
Okay.
So as you move forward,
Yeah. Consider this. What if the key to navigating success and failure with grace and resilience lies not in denying our ego, but in understanding its seductive whispers and consciously choosing a different path?
that's what it's all about.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
I've learned so much.
Me too. Always a good conversation.
I always get so much out of these conversations with you.
Likewise. Likewise.
Until next time, then.
Looking forward to it.